A little bit cheeky, a little bit charming, and a whole lot of fun. Storybox Live. A whole lot of fun. Storybox Live. A whole lot of fun.
I reckon I have, and I really mean this, I've got the best job in the world. I think I was accidentally custom built for this job because of the way I was brought up, because I moved around a lot, I spent so much time alone. I was always, because I don't have brothers and sisters either, so it was just me. After searching for years and years and years and trying to figure out who I am, I suddenly found it, which is I am a picture book maker. That's what I am. I make picture books. I take words and I take pictures and I put them together and I tell a story. I communicate something. I have an idea and I get to send it out to you in a way that hopefully makes you feel happy or feel scared or feel something, you know? My day, it depends what I'm doing. So if I'm writing a story, I'll get up in the morning and I'll go for a run. And when I'm running, I find running just helps me think of ideas. So stuff tends to come when I'm running. If I'm writing, especially if I'm writing in verse, if I'm writing like something that flows in poetry, like Pig the Pug or The Brothers Quibble, I walk all day. I find walking really useful because I can, as I'm walking along, the kind of rhythm of walking helps me kind of figure out how to make something rhyme and make it fit. I look like I'm just texting people all the time, and I'll be hit by a bus one day because I walk around constantly writing on my phone. And there's a couple of reasons. One, it's just when I'm walking, it's easier than having a pen. But the other thing is I used to have really beautiful little notebooks, but I found notebooks, particularly good-looking ones, made me nervous when I picked them up. You don't want to deface it because it's already kind of a perfect thing, and then everything you do feels kind of stupid. Whereas when you just type it on your phone or scribble it on a whiteboard or on the back of a napkin, it doesn't matter. And that's where my best stuff comes from because I'm more relaxed than if I'm, you know the thing, if you've got a pretty notebook, it's like sort of chiseling something into stone. You want every mark you make to be kind of beautiful, whereas it's much more effective, I find, to just scribble, you know, and make a mess. I call it or a lot of people do, call it trying to capture lightning in a bottle. That's what it is. It's trying to catch something that is, you can't see it. You just have to, because that's what I do, or what people who write or paint, or our job is to make something out of nothing, you know, which is a pretty amazing job to have, really. But that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's just me walking around, thinking up stuff, and then trying not to get in the way of it. So that's what I do. I sort of scribble it down on something easy. When I think about it, the first book I ever wrote was written on a piece of toilet paper. Yeah, it was Pearl Barley and Charlie Parsley. It actually started, this little bit here in the frame is my boarding pass when I was on a plane. I wrote the first bit on that, and then that night I was staying with some friends and I didn't have any paper and everybody was asleep, so I went and got some toilet paper from the guest room and I wrote the book, and it's exactly word for word the book. So you don't need anything fancy at all to write a book. I mean, I did it on a piece of toilet paper. If I'm painting though, if I'm doing the artwork, so we take the kids to school, I go down to my studio and I start painting, and I put on music. And music's really, really important with what I do. It helps me kind of create the right mood. This is my favourite place in the whole world. This is my studio. So once I've written a story, once I've got the words, and it's time to start making the pictures, this is where I come. And the first thing I do, I don't just start drawing. What I do is I come in here and the first thing I do is pick some music. These are records, these are vinyl. Some of you probably don't even know what these are. These are vinyl records, right? So I take my record and I pull it out and I put them on my record player, and then I put the cover up over here. And once the music starts, then maybe I come over here. This is my easel where I do my painting. And there's Pig. And I've got all my paints and things all around the place. Or sometimes I work over here. This is my desk. You can see this Thelma, and this is where I do drawings like the bad guys, or I put the little details on, and you see all my textures and my pencils. But I always move around here, and the other thing you probably see all around the room, I've got stuff stuck up everywhere, like over here. This guy, he's called Hergé. He's the guy who made the Tintin books, right? And I love his books. I've got this guy, this is Nick Cave, who's a songwriter, one of my favorite songwriters, and I think making picture books is a little bit like making songs. So I've got lots of songwriters. This is the coolest thing I own. This is Nick read one of my books, Annabelle Spoon, and he signed it for me, which is pretty awesome. This is Bob Dylan, who's one of my other favorite songwriters. Anybody in here, if they're on the wall, there's somebody who makes me get up in the morning and go, yeah, I want to keep making stuff.
Breakfast on the run again. He's well aware. He's dropping soil in seed. Vegemite crumbs everywhere.
I reckon, for me anyway, picture books, making a picture book is a little bit like writing a song, because you don't have very long. A picture book is really short. It's only about 32 pages. And a pop song is only about 3 minutes. So they're quite similar in that. And you can talk about anything you want in that time, in those 30 pages or in that 3 minutes, but you've got to do it really quickly, and you have to do it in such a way that you get to the point, and you can be as poetic or as clever or as funny or as whatever as you want to be in that, but you don't have very long to do it. So you have to get to the point quite quickly. And that's why most of my inspirations of writers tend to be songwriters, because I find a lifelong love of songs and songwriting has had a really big influence on how I make my books, because for me they're songs. Instead of having a tune, I've got pictures. The question that writers always get asked is, where do your ideas come from? And there's no simple answer to it. They can come from anywhere. You can see something on the street, or somebody can say something, you can hear a word. I asked my little boy once, what are your favourite animals? And he started listing them off, and he was going shark, tiger, pig, pug, and he said them in that order, and I heard that, and I just wrote down Pig the Pug, and the name came, right? The simple answer with Pig is that my mum and dad had a pug and a sausage dog, right? And they weren't particularly mean. The pug wasn't a mean dog, but she had these two dogs. And they were a bit yappy, they were all right. But then one day I worked with a guy who used to get really too upset if somebody used the printer the wrong way. He'd go crazy, who's been using the printer? He'd go bonkers. And I thought that was kind of funny. And then, I don't know why, but my mum's dogs and that guy just clicked together in my head, and I had Pig having a tantrum about somebody wanting to share his toys. And that's how it works, which makes me slightly dangerous to know, because if you irritate me, you can end up in a book. Like, they can come from anywhere. I was working on another book called Henry Blood, kind of spooky book. It still isn't finished, but I was writing, and I'd written pages and pages and pages and pages, and I'd written so many that I kind of stopped thinking about what I was doing, and I was just scribbling stuff. And I came back and I looked at it all, and right in the middle of it, I'd written, complained so much, head falls off. And I looked at it and I thought, that's a book. And I wrote Noah Dreary. So they can come from anywhere. The trick is to always be looking for ideas, is to never stop looking for them. Then sometimes ideas come from my life, things that have actually happened. And I got two little boys, they're 8 and they're 6. And when the 6-year-old was born, the 8-year-old wasn't happy about it at all. He was 2 and a bit, and he just went, what is this? Who is this baby? I don't like this at all. And it was like that for a while, and that book took a really long time to write, because it took a really long time to get funny. It wasn't funny for a long time, and then when the boys got older and they started to become really good mates, then I went, okay. And then I suddenly saw, and and I started the book, and it took 3 years actually. I couldn't figure out how to end it. And then one day, the bit in the book where Spalding has got time out and Bunny he waits till the parents leave and he rescues him, he throws the thing through the window. Well, apart from throwing the thing through the window, that actually happened. And I went, oh, that's amazing. He was mean to him, but he doesn't care because he loves him anyway. There's a little sign in my studio, I have it on my desk, and it just says, don't be boring. And I find that the best piece of advice I can give myself every day. Because the wonderful thing about picture books is you can talk about anything. You can talk about big scary stuff, you can talk about really beautiful little personal things that have happened to you. But the worst thing you can do in a kid's book is be boring. It's got to be fun, it's got to be exciting, it's got to be interesting, or make you sad, or make you happy, or do something. And I have that sign there to remind me to never, ever, ever, ever be boring. When I was at school, a lot of the time, a lot of the schools I went to, stuff like painting and making stories and stuff wasn't particularly cool. You know, a lot of the schools I went to, it was all about sport and playing footy and stuff. So the most important thing for me, if there's anybody out there who likes writing or making pictures and thinks they'd like to make books or like to make movies or whatever, my advice would be a couple of things. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. No matter what happens, just keep trying to find a way to do it. And if you're making a story, come up with a character, give them a problem to solve, find something that is a problem, and then they've got to deal with that problem some way, and then try to find the most interesting, unexpected way that they solve that problem. That's if you're writing a story. That's a really good place to start. So never give up, don't be boring, and do it all the time. And this is the thing, if you really love making things, then you're going to end up doing that anyway. You know, nobody will persuade you to not.